Hey there, it is Jacob here with some intuitive guidance for you today. Many people don't know their rising sign or ascendant. Now, the rising sign is the sign of the zodiac that was rising on the horizon at the time you were born, and your ascendant is the degree of that sign that was arising at the moment you were born. Now, for those people who do not know their time of birth, because time of birth is crucial in knowing what your rising sign is and what degree of that sign your rising sign is, because the whole house system, depending on what house system you follow, all falls around the degree of your rising sign. So, for example, I'm Aries Sun with 22 degrees of Gemini rising, so my first house starts at 22 degrees of Gemini. Depending on what house system you use, your houses will be possibly, if it's not the equal house system, will be of different sizes all the way around to your 12th house, which will end at the start of your first house. Now, if you want to get a sense of what the sign could be for your rising sign, what I suggest you do is you keep a diary for at least 28 days because 28 days is the lunar cycle. So keep a diary for at least 28 days and write down what is going on for you in that day and what area of your life feels like it's been activated or challenged or posed or aspected in some way. Refer to the 12 houses, so the first house being about your ego and your personality, your second house being about your money and your possessions, and the third house being about communications, about how you talk. The fourth house being about your home and how you nurture yourself. The fifth house being about romance, the inner child, pleasure, creativity. Sixth house being about work, day-to-day routine, healing and practical things. Seventh house being about relationships, partnerships, balance and harmony. Eighth house being about death, sex, intimacy, boundaries and transformation. Ninth house being about religious beliefs, expansion and enthusiasm. 10th house being about your social status and your career. 11th house being about groups, group energy, friendships in some respects, also higher kind of ideals and idealism and humanitarianism. And the 12th house being about your inner world, your psychic senses, your spidey senses, your relationship with Christ conscious energy and relationship with the divine. So they are the 12 houses. So each day, write down what is going on for you. You may notice in one day that energy shift from one place to another. That will be because the moon will be changing houses in your birth chart. And because you don't know the time of birth, you don't know how those houses are. So by writing down each day for at least 28 days, good to do it for 56, 59 days because that's 2 lunar cycles, and look for what's going on and look at the houses that are affected. That will give you a sense of the moon passing through your houses on your birth chart. Then you will be able to work out what sign you are, is your rising sign. So for example, if you start when the moon is in Aries and you notice that, and you're a Capricorn, and you notice that the energy is kind of around partnerships and fairness and balance, then quite likely you're Libra rising, because it's your 7th house that's being affected, and the moon's in Aries. But you do it for 28 days just to be sure that, you know, you can follow the 2.5 days that the moon is in a sign for. So halfway through Aries, the energy might shift to the 8th house, which means that the sign of Aries covers your 7th house and your 8th house, for example. So keep doing that. 28 days, 28 days, maybe 56 days. You'll get a sense of which houses are affected when the moon is in different signs. You can hone that by perhaps checking the bigger, going through the Ephemeris and looking at the other, like the sun signs. So you might notice a big shift, from one thing to another when the sun changes. When the sun changes the houses, make a note of what degree that is as well on that day. So, it could be when the sun's in, I don't know, 4 degrees of Aries, that you notice that's when it shifts to partnerships and relationships. But that will give you a sense that quite likely your rising sign is 4 degrees of Libra. It's not an exact science. It's not like knowing your exact time of birth, but it will help you narrow it down to a sign at least, and you'll be able to work out what your rising sign is from that. Thank you.